Alright, so this video is aimed at Barry. We're going to talk about Filebot and renaming folders or renaming files right on a Synology NAS in a movie library. But it'll apply to anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about Filebot. So right now I'm going to start with this example. It's on my desktop PC. I've simply got a movie folder named typically like it might be if it's an acquisition, and it'll all work too if it's a optical rip. But what I would do is I would disregard any subtitles that came off a Blu-ray or a DVD in favor of getting matched ones at subscene, because if they're in the .srt format, they won't cause a transcode. Sometimes the PGS subtitles don't cause a transcode on my server, but it really depends on the client app, and the SRT ones are just more universal. So let's just start with that. So let's go to Plex's file naming convention for a movie and start there, because that's helpful on how to get Filebot set up. So Filebot or Plex has a lot of written rules and some unwritten ones. So it's going to tell you it's pulling information from tmdb or imdb, and you can include the database number for either in the actual file name. I prefer tmdb because that's where Plex is actually going to pull the poster art from. And I just ignore IMDb because occasionally when a movie is released, IMDb may have the wrong year. They may list 2004 while TMDB lists 2005, and within a short period of time, usually the IMDb number year is changed to match the TMDB. So if you're acquiring movies and the release group sources the year from IMDb and not TMDB, that can be an issue, but the new movie scanner that Plex came out with about a year and a half ago combines TMDB, TVDB, and IMDb in a secret sauce way behind the scenes. Plex does a cache of all three databases that they use in their scanner. So you're pretty much safe. A movie with a wrong year, well, a wrong year per IMDb's initial listing of it, most likely isn't ever going to unmatch because of that. But still, Filebot will pick up that difference, and you'll get an option to rename it with a proper year during the Filebot procedure. So a couple other things. The unwritten rules, Plex always uses a space. They don't use a dash, they don't use a period. And they always have the year in parentheses. So some people swear that this could be Batman.begins.2005. Whatever. It's probably fine for Plex, but I always point out that that's never the example Plex ever gives in a written example. And my line of thought goes this way. I don't know how Plex is going to update their movie scanner or their agent in the future, and maybe, just maybe, 4 or 5 years down the road, they'll have to update it in a way where those other type of file names now cause problems. But they're definitely not going to update things in a way that their previous examples, which have been consistent throughout the 3 years I've been using Plex, they're never going to update things where those naming conventions throw a monkey wrench into things. So, like, I'm not telling somebody who uses periods they can't use periods, but for future security, I choose not to, if that makes sense. So another unwritten rule is Plex has an official separator they don't talk about. It's in this movie naming document, and it's a space dash space. So they use this with the example of how to name split files with part 1 and part 2. Plex has a separate document that tells you how to add multiple movies to your server. So say this was The Dark Knight. Their example, while not stated, would be a space dash space, and I think they use 1080p.mp4, 720p.mp4, and I believe they use SD.mp4. So I'll frequently refer to this as the official separator, and while Plex never mentions it any place, they give plenty of examples of using that, while giving no examples of using a period or just a plain dash. So people may be contentious over this too, but that's just another fact. It's just not a stated fact. All right, so we know that Plex pulls from either database, and Filebot can only connect to the tmdb. It cannot connect to the IMDb, and just because sometimes on initial listing the year might be wrong at IMDb, I never consult it. I use tmdb as my naming Bible. And again, Filebot will pick up that year difference and give you the option to make the correct match during the process. So let's go to my example. If you acquire movies, you might see something like this, a movie with 2 or 3 subtitles already included. If you rip your movies off from a Blu-ray or a DVD, I would disregard any PGS subtitles. I wouldn't even grab them from the disc. If you get them, I would use MKV toolnix to remove them, and I would go to subscene and look for matching subtitles from there in the SRT format. Some of my clients easily direct play PGS subtitles. I've ripped movies myself, but not every client will, and the SRT are universal. They're not going to cause a transcode on a Roku or a Fire TV or an Apple TV or a NVIDIA Shield or any other Android TV streamer. They're going to work fine on an iOS phone or tablet or an Android tablet or phone. So I prefer SRT subtitles, and they're just easy to work with. So in this example, we need to prep each subtitle. Well, we need to prep 2 of these for Filebot. So if you look, I've got a tiny one, and then I've got 2 other that are pretty much similar in size. Well, without even having to open them, I know the largest one is the hearing impaired subtitle. And if you open it, you'll see the cues real quick, words in parentheses or words in brackets, to give extra context to what's going on besides just what's being said. The default subtitle won't have that extra information. And if we do scroll down though, we'll see that there's 1,505 lines of dialogue. Well, if you have a tiny file included, that will be the forced subtitle. You won't even have to look. And if we scroll down, there's only 150 lines where foreign language is being spoken. So then, to prep these for Filebot, it's easy. If you have a forced one included, you add a little flag to it that says forced. We'll leave the default one alone, and we'll prep this one with .sdh. Now, Plex can also read .hi as a hearing impaired subtitle, but with a lot of media players like VLC will interpret the .hi as a Hindu language subtitle. So luckily Filebot avoids that because it uses SDH instead of HI. So now that those are prepped, let's open Filebot first, and we'll talk about the custom expressions. So I'll add this expression and this expression to the post I make that has the link to this future YouTube video, so they can just be cut and pasted into Filebot. But I'll leave this on the screen for a second. Really, it's just the name in brackets, parentheses, year in brackets, space, the curly Q brackets, and it's got to be formatted this way. It's weird. And then I also add in the official separator, and then I have information that pulls the video format, video codec, audio format, audio codec, and an expression for the subtitle all together, which is a good time to speak of this. Filebot won't be able to use this extra information unless you also install an accessory program called Media Info on your Windows, Mac, or Linux computer. Obviously, I'm not using Windows or Mac. I'm using Elementary OS. It's an Ubuntu-based distro. So if I type Media Info, you'll see I've got it installed. Now, just in case I have anyone watching this who uses Linux, you do not want to install Media Info or Filebot from FlatHub or as a flat pack. Elementary OS, Pop OS, because they license the same store from Elementary OS, their app store is already Flatpak enabled, which means you can search for Flatpak apps right from the App Store, or you can download them from FlatHub and install them quickly. These are sandboxed apps. They don't talk to each other, so Filebot can't talk to Media Info to discover the extra information. So if you're on Linux, just download and install the deb file for each of these, and everything will work out correct. On Windows or Mac, just install Media Info from however you would normally get it, and install Filebot, and you'll be good to go. Alright, so this has been on the screen long enough. Let's start Filebot manually. So I've got a couple extra presets in there. I'm going to go to that one, delete it, just get things clean. See how I'm editing preset, clicking on the new one and deleting, and now I just have my two presets. So let's pretend we're going to add a new one. So I'll hit edit preset at the bottom, click new, and I apologize. I have some scaling going on with my two 28-inch 4K monitors that Filebot does not respect. So everything's a little bit smaller in the Filebot interface than it would be normally. So I'm going to type movie test, click OK, and then by default it's set to rename TV show episodes. So I'll click that, and then I'll hit the movie database. I'll leave everything else alone. There are other options to copy and use a symbolic link or a hard link. I don't know anything about those options. So I'm just going to go off screen and copy my default expression and paste it in and hit save. So now these two presets, movie test and the movie full info, are the same. So let me close Filebot. I'll right click this, choose open in Filebot. Now, might as well give the full tour. Filebot has some extra features. It can pull a random subtitle from Open Subtitle if you want, but there's no way for it to look for all necessary subtitles. So I use this option as a last-ditch effort if I don't have subtitles and I just want to grab something to see if it works before manually looking at subscene and downloading what I need. But if you click subtitle and you click the little person icon here, you can enter in your credentials at Open Subtitles. Open Subtitles lets you create a free account, and I think a free account can pull up to 200 subtitles a day. So it's pretty worthwhile. And then one more feature we'll show. If you go down here to the tool and hit post processing at the bottom, this is where you can turn on and off fetching subtitles, which will turn off. And if you want to use Filebot to grab images automatically while it renames files, you can fetch artwork, cover, posters, and even export an NFO file. But I don't use Plex that way. I don't think Plex can use an NFO file from what I remember reading. Kodi can, but these are just some extra features. So I'm turning them off so we don't get bothered by them. Alright, so we've got this loaded. By default, and without any benefit of media info, I can simply click match in the middle, drop down to movie mode, hit the movie database, and Filebot will do its thing. But it has no idea what to do with the subtitles. So nothing's going to happen with them. It's going to throw an error code up because it can't rename all 3 subtitles to the same file name. But if I simply drop down to the presets, or even start there and click my default preset, Filebot quickly carried through the force flag and auto-discovered the language. It left the regular subtitle alone and just added the language code while renaming it, of course. And it properly carried forth the SDH flag on the hearing impaired one while it gave the movie the proper name. So the expression discovered the resolution, it discovered how it was encoded, it discovered how many channels the audio has, and it also discovered the audio codec of the audio file. So you simply click rename, Filebot renamed 4 folders. We'll go in here and we have everything we need. And I would suggest, if you're acquiring subtitles from Subscene, open the movie up in VLC. Of course, pause. I have to pause it so there's no copyright strike. And then just check for sync with each subtitle before you move it to your server. If you've already got good subtitles on your server, you don't have to worry about it. Filebot will just rename it. So this is how I use Filebot. I rename ripped media, acquired media, before I move it to my server. So say you want to rename directly on your Synology NAS. Now we're back to my issue of sort folders. I haven't figured out how to get Filebot to create folders while it renames, but it's capable of doing that and moving directly to your storage locations. I'm sure it's also capable of creating or renaming the folders in place inside a Plex library on a Synology NAS. I just haven't used it that way. But if this was just a movie folder name in its simple form, you don't really need to add the tmdb number to the folder, because as long as it's in the file name, it's going to be close enough. Alright, so let me take something that isn't so big, because it's going to take a little bit longer to load 662 items versus 131. Let's check this out. Well, these are already good with the no, let me see that. Yeah, these are already with a tmdb. So I will do the adventure folder, because there's some older movies in here that aren't using my full expression. And I will right click and open in Filebot, and I'm just going to go down to the bottom and click my expression and let it work its way through. This would be really fast on my local computer, but it takes a little bit longer to connect with a NAS. But as you can see, it's not taking too long. So what I'm looking for is a little red dot before anything. Green means the folder or the file is already named properly. Alright, so I don't have anything red. Red would be a conflict. Something Filebot could not rename. An example would be an SDH in lowercase versus uppercase. If this movie was already in the proper format, just like this, but the only difference was the SDH was lowercase, and Filebot wanted to make it uppercase, Filebot cannot do that case change. It can only rename the whole file. So because this whole file needs to be renamed, it can make the case change just with that one part. I hope that makes sense. But oh, here's an error. Let's see. Sullivan Travels. This is exactly what I was talking about. See how everything's the same on each side except for SDH is lowercase here and it's uppercase here. Filebot can't make that change, which is why it's in red. So if I simply click rename, these will all rename. Now I'm not going to, because it may screw up my collections, and because my basic file names are in compliance fully, I don't need to. So any new movie I add. But I do want to mention one thing. I just saw it. Where did I see it? Okay, this Austin Powers movie. You see how it says Austin Powers : The Spy Who Shagged Me? That colon's an illegal character. If I hit rename, you know, that's a good one. Let me copy that locally to show you exactly how it works. And then you'll get the full Filebot tour. Alright, so where am I going? Go into working folder. I didn't think about this. I should have had this prepped before I started the video, but again, most of my videos are just as is. I don't prep much for them. I kind of figure if I run into a problem, it's helpful to solve it live than it is to have everything perfect. So I'm going to start file. Well, let me just open the whole folder up in Filebot. So we're going to just hit my preset. So you'll see Army of Thieves is already renamed, so Filebot's not going to bother, and you'll see that colon there. So if I hit rename, we're going to get an invalid character error, and all you have to do is hit validate. It gets rid of the illegal character, hit continue, and you've renamed the movie. So again, I don't know how to create a folder, but I'm sure I could learn if I had to. Filebot has a lot of help on their site. But again, if your folder was already named like this on your storage device, and you simply wanted to upgrade to a more descriptive file name that also had the tmdb database number, Plex is not going to have any matching issues because the folder doesn't also have that TMD database number. So this is running kind of long, but this is how I use Filebot, and again, I'll post those descriptions with this reply to Barry. And Barry, if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching.